evolving world of business and finance. To begin the session on a graceful note, I now have the honor of inviting our dignitaries onto the dais. I request you all to please kindly join me in welcoming them with a warm round of applause as I call out their names. May I request Professor D. Satish, Dean Academics MBA, to come on to the desk. I request Dr. Kamishna, sir, to welcome Satish, sir. Now, may I request Dr. Rajalakshmi, the head of a finance department, to come on to the desk. I request Dr. Patnaik, Dean UG, to welcome Madam. I request Dr. Rajneesh, the conference chair, to come on to the desk. Now, may I request our distinguished speaker, Dr. Tirthankar Patnaik, to please come onto the desk. I request Professor Satish Kumar to please welcome sir. Thank you everyone for gracing the desk. Now, may I request Dr. Kamishna, the conference co-chair, to introduce the speaker.
Good evening. Dr. Tirthankar Patnaik is the Chief Economist at the National Stock Exchange of India. He has over 2 decades of experience in the Indian capital markets, academic research, credit research in macro, sector and strategy, quantitative finance and consumer banking. At the National Stock Exchange, he leads research efforts in macroeconomics, financial markets, corporate governance and ESG and market microstructure. The Economic Policy Research Team is responsible for the NSC's flagship publication, The Market Pulse. Dr. Patnaik started his career as a researcher at the Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, IGIDR, and worked on a number of academic and corporate projects in econometrics and quantitative finance, followed by a stint in consumer banking analytics as an analyst with the Global Consumer Group of Citibank of India and Europe. His next focus area was equity strategy for institutional clients, initially with Citigroup Global Markets as India equity strategist, and then with Religare Capital Markets as the India strategist and chief economist. In his last assignment prior to joining NSC, he was the chief strategist and head of research of India at Japan-based Mizuho Bank. Tirthankar has a PhD from IGIDR Mumbai, where his area of research was high-frequency finance and market microstructure. He also has an MSc in statistics and a BSc in mathematics, both from the University of Madras. He considered himself fortunate to have had a ringside view of the growth story of the Indian economy and markets over the past 2 decades. We are very fortunate, sir. Thank you for accepting our request in spite of the weather. He has just flown in and he will be flying back within an hour to Mumbai. Thank you, sir.
Now I request you to please deliver the news.
Professor Satish, yes, I have a slide. while they're preparing, I can start actually. Um, so Professor Satish, Dr. Jha, and Dr. Lal Krishni, it gives me absolutely great pleasure to come here again. I was here about a year and a half back for a conference, and incidentally at that time as well, we were looking at ESG. At that time, of course, we had Professor C. Rangarajan, and I also met Mr. Mahendra Dev, who was my teacher and who is a distinguished professor here at ICBF. We have many colleagues from this institution who have distinguished themselves in the corporate world, and it gives me really great pleasure to be here and to deliver this valedictory address. The topic that I wanted to speak about today was on ESG. So it is one of the four things that we do at the National Stock Exchange in terms of research areas. The other three being first, of course, macroeconomics. Since we are I head research and I head the economic policy research team. The other two areas are financial markets, easily understandable, and high frequency finance and market microstructure. That's the fourth area that we do. But today I wanted to speak a little bit about ESG, and I wanted to speak about a framework that we all are generally familiar with. We have heard about it in psychology classes, in OB, in HR, and I wanted to put that framework to ESG. And all of us know what ESG stands for. This audience need not be told about it. And the framework that I wanted to use here was thank you. Can I try once it goes? Yeah. Can I just say next time? Yeah, I'll just say next slide. Yeah. So, next slide, please. Okay, so this is basically the flow of my presentation today. I'm going to speak a little bit about the Rumsfeldian framework. What is the Rumsfeldian framework? Of course, we will speak of, and how does that link with ESG? That's the sort of point of my talk today. We'll also look at how do we, strategize based on this framework. What additional learnings do we get from there? And frankly, there'll be some closing elements as to where does that leave us in terms of research. After all, we are in a research conference here. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. All right. So ESG is in a very interesting space. I mean, a lot of us are absolutely convinced ESG is here to stay. ESG is something that should have happened long back. ESG, stands for environment, social, and governance, and especially the E part of ESG needs no further support. It is something that is significantly changed in the last 4 decades or so. Global warming is a proven phenomenon. We ourselves, by the way, did some analysis on median temperatures, not median temperatures in India over the last 100 years. And we found that the distribution of temperatures had shifted to the right by 1 degree in India across periods. So, and we took data from around 1900 or so, and we did it all the way till 2020s. And we found, that things are not what they were actually. I'll give you another example. I used to be this first time student in at ICBF in the late 90s, 1998. At that time, the rains. Many of us may have heard about Mumbai rains. For 2 months, nothing happens, just rains. But the idea was that rains get over by Ganpati. Ganpati Puja means Ganesh Puja, is the last day of rains. Beyond that, you don't get any rains. That's today only a truism. It's not true anymore. Rains extend all the way till sometimes October as well. So another example. So rains, As you know, southwest monsoon, 80% of our precipitation in the country starts in Kerala, then heads all the way up north to Mumbai also. First week of June, maximum second week of June is where you should see it. This part has also started shifting. The weather patterns, or rather climatic patterns, which is weather over a long period, 50-year period or 40-year LPA as we call it, long period average, has shifted. So many people do not need any further convincing that ESG is here to stay, E especially. And this is again a very different part from Friedman. What did Friedman say? Friedman said that the social responsibility of business was to increase its profit. So just like we are utility maximizers, companies should behave as profit maximizers and continue their profits. Life is good, and we have an entire microeconomic literature which says that this is good for everybody. It also maximizes social welfare in many ways. Today, we have moved very far away from what's called shareholder capitalism, wherein the core role of a company was generating profits for its shareholders, to stakeholder capitalism, where a company is no longer seen as a profit generator alone, but also being what can be loosely called as a corporate citizen. What is your responsibility to all your stakeholders? And those stakeholders need not be your shareholders alone. They are people who use your products. They are people who have externalities based on your products. Imagine the people who are, for instance, living around your factory. What's your responsibility towards them? Today, the world has a much more open intention and idea about corporates. So that kind of gives us the framework in which we started ESG. ESG is a very recent phenomenon in terms of the name, at least. The recognition about environment, the recognition about being equitous in your outlook, the recognition about the CG literature has been there for a longer time, much longer time. But these three things came together in a very recent sense, only about 10, 12 odd years back. So my thought process here is to examine ESG as a subject. Now, what do we know about it and what do we not? What are the things that we need to know further, and how can we build a framework around how should we go about in improving our understanding on ESG? So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the idea of my presentation today. And for that, I'm going to use a framework from psychology, which is called the Johari window. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is something everybody knows. I mean, there's no point in, environment, social, fair wages, governance, risk management, employee benefits, greenhouse gases, waste reductions, adhering to labor laws, avoiding conflicts of interest. Next slide, please. And of course, it's got global prominence. As you know, lot more people are looking at ESG. And the recent backlash against parts of ESG, in my understanding, is a good thing for greater, applicability, for greater adherence by a wide set of people. Everything needs to be debated again and again and again until we are very sure that what we are doing is on the right path. So to that extent, it's all right. And when did ESG start? There was this 2004 report, which is called Who Cares Wins, and the Freshfield report of 2006. That was the idea and how you could bring ESG into the financial markets. Next slide, please. Yes. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Rumsfeldian framework. Next slide. Okay. Now, there is a Donald Rumsfeld used to be Secretary of Defense in the United States long back. He has the same alma mater as our current US President, Princeton University. So Donald Rumsfeld, in 2002, when he made a statement and he was giving his briefing, he classified knowledge in 4 parts. That there are things we know. There are things we know that we don't know. For instance, there are some things that are very settled in terms of debates. There are no proofs to be had. If you drop an apple, that apple falls. We know why it falls. We know G(m)(1) m2 by r square. We know the inverse square law, and we know many things, right? But for instance, there are things we know that we don't know. For instance, we don't know how relativity theory links with quantum mechanics. things work great at the large scale structure of the universe. Things do not work, things work great on the quantum scale. Quantum electrodynamics is a very, very accurate area of science. But do you use the same equations? Answer is no. We know there are some things that, these are unknown. I'm not saying unknowable. At this point, we know that we don't know these things. Then there are things that are unknown knowns. In the psychology framework, this will be something as your mannerisms that are not noticed by you, but others know about you. So we may think that we are generally reasonable people, we are very quiet, we never shout. Others may not have the same thought about you. That's an unknown known. Okay. And similarly, a known unknown, some things that we know. There are things. Yeah, right. This is an unknown known. And then there are unknown unknowns. We don't even know that we don't know them. These are not, they are outside our realm of cognition at this point. We don't have any idea about them. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to look at aspects of ESG. In fact, sometimes going into E, going into S, going into G, and putting this in the Rumsfeldian framework, which again starts from the Johari window of psychology. Next slide, please. So in the known knowns here would be, what are the established facts about ESG? What do we know properly about ESG? And the known unknowns are places where we have gaps. These are things that ESG has not established clearly. One classic examples for student researchers is, if a company follows ESG, will it necessarily make more money than a company that does not? So many papers in the literature, both plus or minus. There are enough papers which say if you follow ESG techniques, markets will reward you. And there are others that say, no, this is not established. And so much so that there are meta-analysis on these papers itself, that how many papers say this, how many papers say that. Then there are unknown knowns. That there are insights which are kind of acknowledged, but they're not generally established yet. Acknowledgement on one side is not necessarily, proof. In academic, literature or academic exercises, we need policy-based evidence. We need evidence-based proofs. And there are places where we know there are blind spots. Next slide, please. Okay. So now in the next few slides, I'm going to go through some of these areas, actually going through, known knowns, known unknowns, and so forth. In the environment space, it is well proven that renewable energy, if you follow renewable energy, it leads to environmental excellence. Things will get improved now. It's not something that you and I would want to believe. No, it has been proven again and again and again. And these are some of the papers that I pointed out. I'm sure this audience can find many more. I've only chosen to take some papers that prove this. Similarly, if you improve your GHG disclosures, life improves. Again, there are many papers that show this. I've just taken some of the new ones, but there are established papers in this area. And then climate risk is important. You cannot ignore climate risk anymore. There are classic examples, very good papers. In fact, so much so, RBI had a paper about a year and a half back on climate risk that provides a framework for financial intermediaries, banks in this case, to consider when they are looking at their credit decisions. That's the known fact of ESG. So firms, for instance, firms affected by mandatory emission rule, they reduce their GHG emissions by about 8%. This is evidence-based policy. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, some more known knowns. That was environment. That was E, and this is S. So if you have better diversity, if you have inclusion, never mind what's happening from the US now against DEI, but there are papers that show that inclusivity leads to better productivity. There are papers, gender diversity leads to more productive companies as measured by market value and revenue. There's a 2020 paper. And this is, again, I would want to put this, I would want to create a distinction again and again about what we believe and what is, proven by the academic world in terms of evidence-based, peer-reviewed publications. It's not enough that you and I believe something. Is it proved beyond all doubt? That's the idea. CSR practices are linked to brand equity. If a company has good CSR practices, many of us, we remember the Tata Steel ad, where Tata Steel is showing, as being interested in schools, in hospitals, and so many things. At the end, they used to simply say, "We also make steel." Remember that? That was the Tata Steel ad. It worked so well. It worked about Tata Steel's brand equity like no other. That was there. And corporate governance improves firm performance. If you're good, if you're honest, in your corporate governance, firm performance improves. Proven beyond doubt. Next slide, please. Now, let me look at some of the more difficult parts. Known knowns are fine. Let me look at known unknowns. Is carbon capture, where you're basically looking at how do we capture the carbon that comes out of our factories or our agriculture in a sustainable manner. What's the technology there? India, as you know, our Prime Minister made a commitment that India will go net zero by 2070. That's the commitment we have made. But what is the technology and what's the long-term viability? Ladies and gentlemen, it is not proven yet entirely. There are papers on this, but no. Then again, this part. We have committed 2070. Would we get there? I'm sure this room will have many people who will say, yes, 2070 looks okay, we should be able to get there. And there'll be enough people who will say, 2070 is not, because it's a country. It's not one factory, one company, no, it's a country. We might think 40 years is a very, very long time. It's possible. On the other hand, we might think we may not. Anyway, it's not proven. Again, social impact of ESG, not proven yet. What we proved in the previous slide was impact on companies. If you follow this, companies will do better. But how does this affect the society? We all believe that, if companies were better, things were better, life will be better, and therefore society will be better. But these are English statements. This is not evidence-based policy. That is a known unknown at this point. Again, if you have ESG programs by companies, so far so good. Will it mitigate social inequalities globally? It kind of looks nice to say, yes, ESG should be followed by all companies. But let me give you an example. The total number, banking sector is a big sector in India. The total number of people who work in banks in India is about 14 lakhs. The total number of people in India's workforce is 60 crores. Yeah, that should give you an idea that will ESG practices followed in this, in mitigating social inequalities, will it be something that will have a global impact? I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes. I'm simply saying I'm talking about the evidence of, good papers, established papers. Again, greenwashing. Everybody wants to try. ESG is a great gravy train. There is so much funding involved. Why can't we name our company something to do with green? Like these days, it's AI. Everything to do with AI. You have AI produced textiles. I remember 25 years back, it was software. So there was a company that produced software. That stock also went up. I'm not joking. It was the case. So the company used to produce vests and briefs. They are hosiery items. They used to write software. And the company did well because people did not differentiate between software and software. Today it's AI. 4 years back it was ML. Everything was machine learning, machine learning. We follow machine learning in our work. Whatever we do, great. So another point with AI. Will AI detect greenwashing automatically? All the cases, no evidence-based policy. Again, uncertainty over the impact of emerging ESG regulations in developing economies. It is great for us all to say that we should mitigate greenhouse gases. Okay, but I will take the point made by our chief economic advisor. The developed countries polluted the whole world big time, and they were responsible for raising the mean temperatures above 1850 levels by 1 degree, 1.5 degrees. They were responsible. why should we have a far difficult path towards development? Why? Our per capita, we may be large as a country, contributors to global, CO2 levels, but at a per capita level, we are puny. The average American, produces, I don't know the numbers here, but at least 10 times more carbon dioxide than the average Indian. Why should we take the difficult path towards development? Many of you may agree, many of you may not agree. I'm just pointing out that there is the lack of, evidence-based policy here. Next slide, please. Now, another difficult part. From known unknowns to unknown knowns. There are things we know, but again, we are not sure about them. This is very interesting. So we know that ESG standards should be different across countries. In Europe, you can easily say that half of your board should have women. Try doing that in India. For any of you who are studying corporate governance space, yes, LODR and all put a lot of things. Very nice, that we should have, representation, we should have PIDs in the board, all that is good. But are we in a position to put up the European standards straight away here? Maybe not at this time. So there is an understanding that there is a difference of, ESG standards, and there are regional variations here. Similarly, all of us talk about how things were in the previous generations, how our grandparents used to work, how things, ma'am, we were talking about it, how things were sustainable. Underutilized indigenous knowledge systems. We know they were there, but it is good to prove them through papers. And that's where things are lacking. This is an unknown known. Another point, we kind of believe that qualitative narratives are great over actionable KPIs. Qualitative narratives are very good. Everybody loves a story. But stories are not evidence-based policy. So that's again some place where we know things are there. Nobody disagrees, but it will be good to have some answers. Again, does good governance lead to employee retention? Good governance in a company leads to good performance of the company. But does that hold employees? This is a small, rather narrow aspect, but it is still unestablished yet. And again, the latent influence of informal networks. We all are aware about informal networks in many cases here. That literature is also rather large in the academic space. But how does that lead to governance reforms? How can that lead to improvement in how companies operate? This is something, again, we need to think about. Next slide, please. And these are unknown unknowns. We have no idea. So, for instance, we don't know how does biodiversity loss. These are again things which are very important. Biodiversity loss. How does that affect micro ecosystems? How does global warming in some cases, or warming in urban areas of India, how does that affect the society where you live? Or the ecosystem, your school, your area, how does that affect? What is the linkage? The same point that I raised about relativity theory being so good to explain the large-scale structure of the universe, space-time. Einstein was absolutely right when he looked at general relativity. And then the quantum theory guys, Heisenberg and all, were absolutely right. But Einstein got his Nobel in 1905. He found general theory, or expounded general theory around 1917. Einstein died in 1955. He spent the next 30 years of his life trying to combine the small with the big in simple senses, unsuccessfully. Many of us would have heard about what's that? Big Bang Theory. There's that comedy serial, right? So this guy is working in some subject called string theory. So string theory came in the 60s, okay, which tried to combine these two things together, but unproven. Another unknown known. We think it is true, but there is no proof here. Questions here. What are the social repercussions of global ESG standardization? What are they? If we start fitting everybody in the same goals, if we start looking at net zero for all countries in this cases, for instance, we don't know. Then again, what is the potential backlash from over-regulation? We are seeing some now, but will this last? Many people say as to the things that are happening in the US today, certainly in terms of DEI and all, When I read the papers, I read two themes. One is it was much needed, people needed to question, and there are others that say this is the wrong phase, this is the bad phase, it will pass over. We don't know the answers. So these are some of the places where we have blind spots, we don't really know them. Next slide, please. Now, the next part. Okay, I put out all the four quadrants in front of you: known knowns, known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns. Okay, in the Rumsfeldian framework. But how do we improve? How do we respond to these things from a research perspective, from an academic research perspective, specifically? So for one part is to, of course, prioritize research. Look at the known unknowns, try and reduce uncertainty. That part is very logical. Then develop mechanisms. At least we should have a right direction so that the things that are beyond our cognition, we could have some better understanding. And extract value from unknown knowns. Next slide, please. But I'll go through this in slightly greater detail now. Next slide. Okay. For known knowns, we need established frameworks, leverage them, use them properly. You look at BRR, that's SEBI's own BRR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. Look at GRI, look at SASB, look at TCFT, so many things. So these things, as you know, BRR started about 2012 or so. It was started for small companies. It was gradually, large companies. It was gradually expanded to smaller companies. And then 2 years back, we had BRRs. BRR was a choice, and slowly it will become, expanded to a larger set. And at some point, we want assurance. Just as a corporate, when it releases its financial statements, it's not enough if the corporate releases them. We need audited numbers, don't we? But when we look at BRRs, or BRSRs, where is the audit? So the thought process, and rightly so, is to bring about assurance. That's the next stage. And at some point, initially, it's voluntary, then it becomes comply or explain, and then it becomes a rule. We know this process for putting up rules. So use clear metrics. We need better metrics to measure ESG. And then consult with, you need to engage multiple, stakeholders. This is the crux in my understanding of ESG as well. You don't have to look at one stakeholder. You have to look at a lot of people and see what are the combined learnings that you get from there. Next slide, please. So yes, for the unknown knowns, we need cross-sector dialogue. We need to think about, I know roundtables and all are just the ways, but the idea is to bring people together and see what learnings can we get. For instance, academics talk to each other, of course. Academics do engage with policy people as well. But there is, in my understanding, and please correct me if I'm mistaken here, the indigenous knowledge systems that we were discussing earlier. I'm not sure how many academics are actually engaging with indigenous knowledge systems here. Then another thing is to encourage experimentation. You have to have innovation labs, pilot projects. Please use AI, everybody says. Please use AIs and scenario analysis to have early indicators. Frankly, the E part of ESG, climate risk, is the clear and present danger in the form of ESG today. S and G can be handled, E not so much. How are we prepared for such climate risk events? This is something that requires a lot of research. Next slide, please. And so this is the broad thought, just the broad thought. If I bring everything together, I look at known knowns, I look at known unknowns. So known knowns will be integration. Look at financial modeling, where you know things, bring them together, make them more evidence-based policy. For known unknowns, try scenario planning. If this happens, what do we do? If this happens, what do we do? Build evidence-based analysis out of them, especially things like net zero operations. For the unknown knowns, bring indigenous, underutilized systems together. There's a lot of knowledge, particularly in India, where we all are. We are proud citizens of this country. We have one of the world's oldest civilizations, but our knowledge systems, our old knowledge systems need to be utilized. They have to be brought together with modern understanding, modern ways of understanding things, scientific method today, and how can that be used to improve our lives here, specifically to understand known unknowns. And then for unknown unknowns, the idea is, I'm not suggesting this in a very strong sense, but we need funding. What do we do? How do we do? And which are the unexpected things. When I made this project initially, this presentation initially, I wrote geopolitical shifts as a lark. I thought, yes, geopolitics looks very exciting these days. I didn't know things will happen like Lenin said. In decades, nothing happens. No. And in weeks, decades happen. Or it's something like that. That is, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin said that actually. And who knew that in the third week of January, Mr. Trump would come and upend all our lives in a meaningful manner. Especially for analysts like me, life is very, very exciting these days. Next slide, please. And what are the closing elements? Just to look at for the research part. Yes, this is basic. Next slide. Yes. So just some thoughts about what are the broad research directions that could be undertaken in this Rumsfeldian framework on ESG. It's a very exciting topic, and I've just tried to put in a framework in terms of an epistemological framework, a knowledge framework, and how we can look at this subject, which is a bone of contention in many ways even today. And some of the things we should, for instance, look at tokenism. We should look at genuine inclusion. We should have strategic advancements, and the idea should be for societal development. Clearly, that's the initial point, but academic research should support that. Next slide, please. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Tirthankar sir, for your inspiring and thought-provoking valedictory address. Your insights have truly added great value to the conference and also given us much to reflect upon. Now comes the time to felicitate our guests. May I request Professor D. Satish to felicitate Dr. Tirthankar. I now request Professor Satish Kumar to felicitate Professor D. Satish. I now request Dr. Rajneesh to felicitate Dr. Valedictory. Now I request Parvati Jyoti ma'am to felicitate Rajneesh. Now comes the most awaited moment. I request Professor Satish Kumar to please announce the process that we have taken for selecting the best papers for the awards.
A very good evening. This is one of the toughest moments in the entire conference that we have to face. Given the quantity and quality of papers that we had, we we had to choose only 3, given the number was limited to 3. So it had been a very tough process because usually the team of the reviewers found the others who lost on the grounds of quality or because of some other issues, they were equally capable of being the best papers in the process. But since our hands are tight and we cannot give it more than 3 articles, we have to do a fair job. And in that sense, only a few people doing the job and selecting the best papers will not be the best strategy. So the process started in the beginning when we closed the registrations, and all the papers in the department individually went to a lot of, in fact, all of the faculty members in the department. They gave their comments, and all the comments are kind of blind, so that nobody, no reviewer knows about the origin or the authors or affiliations of the authors. So to keep that as confidential and anonymous, we collected the data, the entire team, then the ICBF team selected the 15 top articles among all the submissions that we had, around 134, with the condition that no faculty from IBS would qualify for the best paper award. So we had maintained that standard. Only papers outside IBS Hyderabad will be part of the process. Then under the guidance of our HOD, she made a committee of 3 reviewers who reviewed those 15 articles, and they gave them their own scoring. And all those 15 articles were completely blind, which means we were not aware who the authors are, what their affiliations is. And each one of them had a scoring of 15 articles. Eventually, we took the grading of all these 3, and finally, coming at the consensus, we took the equal weighted average, such that once all the scores are there, one faculty or one reviewer should not bias the entire process. So once the equally weighted score were given, then we arranged all of them 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then gave the ranks. Then finally we selected the best 3 among all the articles. But having said that, it was a painful process because we were seeing quite a good number of articles not making it into the top 3. They were equally capable. So my heart goes out to those people who lost just by margin. But at the end of the day, you coming to IBS and presenting your articles, we are not the best judge of your papers because everybody likes their own child, their own research papers is like a child to them. But we have done our best in terms of being as unbiased as possible, try to be as true to the job we are doing as possible, and hopefully the moment we call out the names of the winners, those who lost out should celebrate and in fact also consider themselves to be the winners as well. So in this process, congratulations to those who made it to the final 3. At the same time, others who couldn't make it, do not feel bad. Your papers were equally bright, equally good, and I wish you a great outlet for your publications, so that even if you couldn't make it to the top 3, I wish you made it to the top journals in financial publications. So thank you very much. I'll call upon Professor Rajneesh to disclose the winners. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Satish, for giving this opportunity. So we'll start with third paper first, third prize. The best third paper award goes to, okay, even I'm not aware, so I have to check. I hope all of them are here in audience. Yeah. Miss Vishakha Jaiswal and Surya Miss Vishakha Jaiswal. Yeah, please come. I would like to request Dr. Patnaik to hand over the certificate. Next, I will invite second winner, Ms. Yasmin Khatun and Mr. Dushyant Ashok Mahadev. Now I request Professor Satish to hand over the certificate. Next, the first prize goes to Mr. Mithun Somanta and Mr. Ajay Kumar Mishra. Sorry, Dr. Ajay Kumar Mishra. Mr. Mithun Somanta
Somebody else, please collect in absentia.
or anyone from IIT Kharagpur on behalf of them can collect. Congratulations, all the winners.
Thank you for that. Now, may I request Dr. Kameshwara sir to present the official vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, team. There is nothing unofficial about it. Everything is official and unofficial. Okay, good evening, everyone. I thank my team for giving me this pleasant opportunity to thank and my convener, Dr. Rajneesh, Professor Satish Kumar, Dr. Anastasia, and we had another one whom we have not seen for the past 2 days, but he was quite vibrant behind. Dr. Sagar, who was also one of our team members, but unfortunately he met with an accident. That's the reason he could not be present here. But we recognize his great contribution and support during this time. So a big round of applause to him. Tirthankar sir, you were talking about AI. Yes. And I would like to say ICBF 2025 was also supported by AI. Not artificial intelligence, but I wanted to say augmented intelligence. So what I wanted to convey that ICBF 2025 at this scale was possible because of the good and positive intentions of many souls who have supported, blessed right throughout the day from the conception to this point in time. So it is also powered with AI, sir, augmented intelligence, which made it possible. I thank Dr. CKG Nair, sir, our chief guest at the inauguration, Professor Pankaj Basu for his keynote address. It was a good beginning for this 2-day conference. The momentum was sustained by the deliberations of the roundtable today in the morning, and we were fortunate enough to have Sri Raghuveer Srinivasan, Sri Debajyoti Dey, Sri Prem Kumar, and Sri Abhinav Sain. And I hope you would have noted that all of them, though from industry, are actually heading research in their organizations, and that was the team of roundtable we had, sir. And then we also thank Professor Vijay Marisetti for his insightful presentation on the digital public infrastructure and his generosity to distribute direct research questions. And I hope many of you would have taken pictures of those research questions, very, very profound research questions. Thank you, sir, for the generosity. We can't thank enough Dr. Tirthankar for having consented to be on the research advisory board for this conference and at the same time to deliver the valedictory address. So in spite of his very, very busy schedule, he definitely has accepted our request and for giving this valedictory address, sir. And thank you for that framework of knowns and unknowns. We'll definitely carry it forward. We are deeply indebted to our Madam Subharani Yashasvi, our chairperson, ICFI Society, Shri V.R. Shankara Garu, President, ICFI Society, for their continuous and unconditional support for the conduct of ICBF 2025. We also thank Dr. O.R.S. Rao, sir, ICFI University Sikkim, for his guidance, and Professor G.K. Shrikant, who was here, always giving us guidance and strategies how to approach the sponsors to get the required fuel for this conference. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor L.S. Ganesh, should have been presiding the inaugural event, but however, due to his ill health, he could not make it. But I would like to mention that in spite of his absence, he was continuously calling and asking how is the conference going on, and that made me to write this statement, augmented intentions. He was always there blessing us. So we also thank Professor Vijayalakshmi for her constant motivation. Team ICBF expresses heartfelt thanks to Professor Venugopal, Director IBS, for constantly monitoring the quality of every process in the making of ICBF 2025. And I would definitely say that we are fortunate to have the Dean IBS, Professor D. Satish, from the Finance Department. So many things were very smooth and the processes were getting their approvals on time. At the same time, Dr. Rajalakshmi, our head of the department, she was our bouncing board for ideas and strategies. Every day, at least 3 to 4 times, we will get into her chamber and ask her, Madam, how is it going? Tell us, give us some thought. And she'll be there to tell, this is right, this is wrong, you shouldn't do this. But hope we have reached all your expectations, Madam. Though finance is the subject matter of this particular conference, it would not have been possible unless and until we had the finance which will fuel this entire 2-day event. We are very thankful to the research partner M6 India, Multi-Commodity Exchange, our sponsors Wiley, Cengage, McGraw-Hill and LIC of India, and for keeping us cool during the heated debates and discussions and deliberations, our hydration partner Atmos. Thank you for them for having given the sponsorship. I also thank Dr. Ishan Aluwalia from BlackRock India, Shri Debajyoti Dey, Shri Tirthankar, Patnaik sir, Mr. Prem Kumar for being on the Research Advisory Committee. Dr. Sudhakar Rao, branding head ICFI Group and his team deserves rich applause for all the help they have done for branding, for printing the banners, designing the banners in the book of abstracts. And I would fail in my duty in case I don't thank Colonel Vishna, the Director Administration and his entire team, Mr. Piyush, Mr. Samad Nuras, for making your stay comfortable here, for all the administrative infrastructure support and providing us delicious food during the 2 days. Madam Lakshmi Prasanna, Mr. Arjun, Mr. Arnavas at the Central HQ for the support for procurement and travel, and Madam Ratnabhanu, Madam Saraswati, Shri Bharadwaja from the Finance and Accounts team, even though they were very, very minutely observing everything, but still helping us to release funds and approving the budgets on time. I also thank my entire student team from the FinTech Cell BBA and the DAP team BBA for their extremely resourceful and sincerely committed tech support as well as the social media engagement. Thank you once again. And we know in these days when our MBA students are there in the SIPs, today is a Saturday, they don't have their classes, but still they have been there to help us through. Thank you once again. Though I am mentioning the entire faculty team and the research scholars of the Finance and Accounting Department at the end, but I have no words to place the appreciation of the entire ICBF team for their unconditional support during the entire 2 days, and right from the registration desk to the track management, to the planning, to the hospitality, to taking care of food and the travel, and then receiving the guests. There are so many things which they have done, and that's the reason it's a very good show of camaraderie is what I personally feel. And thank you very much. Even though I shouldn't have to tell thanks, but it is our duty and it's our conference. But it's a show of camaraderie which I have put up, and it has been recognized. By the way, I have heard from many of the participants during my informal engagements. I also thank for the support of the staff, support staff for maintaining the infrastructure and helping us to stay fit and fine. And I thank one and all. In case I failed in my duty to express my thank, kindly excuse me for this mistake if I have done something. But I thank everyone for giving us this opportunity. And I request all the research scholars as well as the professors who have taken time to showcase their research and express themselves. Kindly keep us on your radar and watch for the next seasons to come. And we hope that your participation will still continue, and then we'll try to scale it up to the next levels. Thank you very much. May I request everyone to kindly gather here for the group photo.